Have you ever witnessed the impossible in nature's deepest sanctuaries, where ancient boundaries between species dissolve in moments of desperate need? This isn't your typical wildlife encounter. Deep in the Congo Basin, something extraordinary unfolded that shattered everything scientists thought they knew about animal behavior. Today's story begins with an unprecedented plea for help, one that would rewrite the rules of interspecies communication and leave researchers questioning the very nature of compassion in the wild. Deep within the Virunga Mountains, where mist-shrouded volcanic peaks pierce the African sky, lies Bwindi. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. Primeval rainforest sanctuary that has remained virtually untouched for millennia. This emerald cathedral stretches across rolling hills and plunging valleys, where towering mahogany and fig trees create a living canopy so dense that sunlight filters through in ethereal golden beams. Ancient vines cascade like natural curtains, while the forest floor is carpeted with moss so thick it muffles every footstep. Here, crystal-clear mountain streams wind through the undergrowth, their gentle babbling mixing with the symphony of tropical birds and distant calls of exotic primates. The air itself seems alive, thick with humidity and the rich, earthy scent of decomposing leaves that feed this incredible ecosystem. Orchids bloom in impossible colors along weathered tree trunks, while butterflies with wings like stained glass drift through shafts of filtered sunlight. But Bwindi holds secrets far more extraordinary than its breathtaking beauty. This is a place where the impossible becomes reality, where the rigid laws of nature bend to accommodate something far more profound, moments of cross-species understanding that challenge everything we know about animal intelligence and empathy. In these mystical depths, mountain gorillas have carved out territories among the volcanic ridges, their massive silverback leaders ruling families with surprising gentleness. Yet what happened here on one misty morning would forever change how scientists view the emotional complexity of these magnificent creatures. It was an act so unprecedented, so remarkably human-like in its desperate plea for help, that it would force researchers to reconsider the very boundaries between human and animal consciousness. This is where our story begins, in a place where miracles hide behind every moss-covered boulder and extraordinary compassion emerges from the most unexpected sources. Among Bwindi's most magnificent inhabitants lived Kigali's gorilla family, a close-knit group of 14 individuals led by Kigali, a massive silverback whose presence commanded respect throughout the forest. Standing nearly 6 feet tall and weighing over 400 pounds, Kigali's imposing frame was softened by intelligent dark eyes that reflected decades of wisdom and experience. His silver-streaked back caught the dappled sunlight as he moved through his territory with surprising grace for such an enormous creature. But it was Nyota, a mature female with distinctively gentle features and remarkably expressive eyes, who would become the unlikely hero of our story. Unlike other members of the family, Nyota possessed an unusual curiosity about the world beyond their forest domain. She had been observed numerous times studying human researchers from a distance, tilting her head with an almost contemplative expression as she watched their activities with fascination rather than fear. The family's youngest members, playful juveniles named Imara and Django, often followed Nyota's lead, learning not just survival skills but also her unique approach to understanding their environment. Kigali's group had established themselves in a territory rich with wild celery, bamboo shoots, and the protein-rich pith that formed their primary diet. Their daily routine involved methodical foraging through the misty undergrowth, occasional territorial displays, and long periods of peaceful grooming that strengthened their social bonds. What made this particular gorilla family extraordinary wasn't just their size or their prime territory, it was their unusual tolerance for the presence of other species. While most gorilla families maintained strict boundaries with neighboring wildlife, Kigali's group had developed an almost diplomatic coexistence with the forest's other inhabitants. They had been observed sharing feeding areas with forest elephants, and even showing curious restraint around smaller primates. This remarkable openness to interspecies interaction would prove crucial to the events that were about to unfold, setting the stage for an act of cross-species communication that would astound the scientific community. Dawn broke gently over Bwindi that Tuesday morning, painting the forest canopy in soft hues of amber and gold. Wisps of mist drifted lazily between the towering trees, creating an almost dreamlike atmosphere as the first rays of sunlight pierced through the dense foliage. The air was crisp and cool, carrying the fresh scent of dew-covered leaves and the distant fragrance of blooming wild ginger. Kigali's family had settled into their morning routine with the unhurried rhythm that defined life in their peaceful territory. The massive silverback sat beneath his favorite fig tree, methodically stripping bark with practiced precision while keeping one watchful eye on his family members scattered throughout the nearby clearing. His powerful chest rose and fell in contentment as he surveyed his domain, a picture of absolute tranquility. Nyota had positioned herself on a moss-covered fallen log, delicately selecting the tender shoots of wild celery while her keen eyes occasionally swept the forest perimeter. The morning light filtering through the canopy highlighted the gentle intelligence in her expression as she chewed thoughtfully, completely at peace in her familiar surroundings. Young Imara and Django engaged in playful wrestling nearby, their soft grunts of amusement adding a cheerful soundtrack to the serene morning. Their carefree tumbling sent small cascades of leaves floating to the forest floor, where they settled silently among the thick carpet of decomposing vegetation. The forest itself seemed to breathe with quiet contentment. Colorful hornbills called melodiously from the treetops, while the gentle rustling of leaves created nature's own lullaby. Somewhere in the distance, a troop of colobus monkeys chattered softly, their voices barely audible over the peaceful morning symphony. It was the kind of perfect morning that embodied everything beautiful about life in Bwindi, a moment of pure harmony where every creature existed in perfect balance with their environment. The gorilla family had no way of knowing that within minutes, this tranquil scene would be shattered by desperate cries that would test the very limits of interspecies compassion. The tranquil morning was suddenly pierced by a sound that made every member of Kigali's family freeze, a high-pitched, desperate wailing that echoed through the misty forest with heart-wrenching intensity. It wasn't the familiar call of any bird or primate they knew. This was something else entirely, something that spoke of pure terror and helplessness. Nyota's head snapped up first, her sensitive ears pinpointing the direction of the distressing cries. The sound was coming from the rocky outcropping near the old baobab tree, roughly 200 meters downhill from their current position. Kigali immediately ceased his methodical feeding, his massive frame tensing as his protective instincts kicked into high alert. The entire family turned toward the source of the commotion, their peaceful morning routine completely forgotten. Young Imara and Django stopped their playful wrestling, pressing close to their mother as the unfamiliar sounds continued to pierce the morning air. The cries were becoming more frantic, more desperate with each passing second. What struck them most profoundly was the tone of these calls. There was something unmistakably vulnerable about them, something that triggered deep protective instincts even across species lines. The voice was small, young, and filled with the kind of primal fear that transcends all boundaries in the natural world. Nyota took the first tentative steps toward the source of the distress calls, her powerful hands carefully parting the thick undergrowth as she moved. Her dark eyes were fixed intently on the rocky area ahead, where the desperate cries seemed to be originating. Behind her, Kigali made a low rumbling sound, not aggressive, but deeply concerned, as he too began moving toward the mysterious commotion. The forest around them had fallen into an eerie silence, as if every creature was holding its breath, waiting to discover what tragedy was unfolding in their peaceful sanctuary. Even the birds had stopped singing, creating an atmosphere of tense anticipation as the gorilla family approached what would soon reveal itself as a scene that would change everything they thought they understood about the bonds between different species. As Nyota carefully pushed through the final curtain of hanging vines, the scene that greeted her was nothing short of horrifying. There, trapped in a narrow crevice between two moss-covered boulders, lay a tiny lion cub, no more than 8 weeks old, with golden fur still bearing the faint spots of extreme youth. The little creature's amber eyes were wide with terror as it released another desperate cry for help. But the cub wasn't alone in its rocky prison. Coiled around the lower half of the small lion's body was a massive African rock python, easily 12 feet in length and thick as a man's torso. The serpent's diamond-patterned scales gleamed with an oily sheen in the filtered sunlight, its muscular coils tightening incrementally with each labored breath the cub took. The python's triangular head swayed hypnotically just inches from the cub's face, its black tongue flicking out repeatedly to taste the fear in the air. The predator had clearly been lying in ambush near the rocky outcropping, when the young lion, separated from its pride and wandering too far from safety. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Had stumbled into the perfect trap. Now, wedged between the unforgiving stones, the cub was completely helpless, as the python's powerful muscles slowly crushed its tiny ribcage. What made the scene even more heartbreaking was the cub's obvious exhaustion. Its initial struggles had weakened considerably, and its cries were becoming fainter with each passing moment. The python's strategy was methodical and patient. It would simply wait until its prey could no longer draw breath, then begin the slow process of consumption. The serpent's cold, unblinking eyes showed no emotion, no mercy, only the ancient, relentless drive to survive that had remained unchanged for millions of years. Its powerful coils contracted slightly, eliciting another weak whimper from the trapped cub, whose small paws clawed helplessly at the smooth rock surfaces surrounding it. Time was running out, and nature's most brutal law was about to claim another innocent victim in this supposedly peaceful sanctuary. The sight before them triggered something profound within the gorilla family, an emotional response that transcended the usual boundaries of species interaction. Nyota's dark eyes filled with an unmistakable anguish as she watched the tiny lion cub's desperate struggle. Her massive hands clenched and unclenched repeatedly, her body language betraying an internal conflict between her protective instincts and the harsh realities of natural law. Kigali approached cautiously, his enormous frame casting a shadow over the tragic scene. The silverback's usual confident demeanor had been replaced by something resembling helplessness, a feeling completely foreign to the king of his domain. His deep rumbling vocalizations grew more agitated as he circled the rocky outcropping, searching for some way to intervene without putting his family at risk. The massive python was a formidable opponent, even for a 400-pound gorilla. Its powerful coils could easily crush bones, and its lightning-fast strike could deliver a devastating bite. More importantly, any aggressive approach might cause the serpent to tighten its grip on the cub, ending the little creature's life instantly. Young Imara and Django pressed close behind their elders, their innocent eyes wide with confusion and distress. They had never witnessed such raw suffering before, and their soft whimpers of concern added to the heartbreaking atmosphere. The family's usual hierarchy seemed temporarily suspended as each member grappled with the moral complexity of the situation unfolding before them. Nyota moved closer to the edge of the rocky crevice, her intelligent eyes studying the python's positioning with remarkable analytical precision. She could see that direct intervention was impossible. The space was too narrow, the snake too dangerous, and the risk to the cub too great. Yet every fiber of her being screamed that something had to be done. The gorilla family found themselves trapped in an emotional paradox that challenged everything about their understanding of the natural world. Here was suffering that demanded action, yet nature's laws seemed to forbid intervention. They were witnesses to a tragedy they were powerless to prevent, their remarkable intelligence making their helplessness all the more torturous. 300 meters up the misty mountainside, Dr. Marcus Ruwema, a Rwandan primatologist, was carefully adjusting his research equipment when an unusual sound caught his attention through the forest canopy. For 15 years he had studied gorilla behavior in these mountains, and his trained ear immediately recognized something extraordinary in the vocalizations drifting up from below. Dr. Ruwema was no ordinary researcher. Raised in a village at the base of the Virunga Mountains, he had learned to read the forest's language long before he earned his doctorate from Oxford. His weathered hands moved with practiced efficiency as he secured his observation gear, while his dark eyes scanned the dense vegetation below, with concern growing in his expression. The sounds weren't typical gorilla communications. They were more urgent, more distressed, carrying an emotional weight that spoke of genuine crisis. In all his years of field research, he had never heard Kigali's family produce such anguished calls. Something was terribly wrong. Without hesitation, Dr. Ruwema began his careful descent through the thick undergrowth, his khaki field clothes barely rustling as he moved with the fluid grace of someone completely at home in the forest environment. His weathered hiking boots found purchase on moss-covered roots and slippery stones as he navigated toward the source of the distressing sounds. As he drew closer, the calls became more distinct, and Dr. Ruwema's heart began to race. Mixed with the gorilla's vocalizations, he could hear something else. High-pitched cries that definitely weren't coming from any primate. His scientific mind immediately began cataloging possibilities, while his humanitarian instincts urged him to move faster. Equipped with his emergency radio, tranquilizer kit, and decades of experience in wildlife crisis situations, Dr. Wema represented the one element that could potentially shift the balance of the unfolding tragedy. His deep connection to both the scientific community and local conservation networks made him uniquely positioned to coordinate a response that went far beyond what nature could provide on its own. What he would discover in the next few minutes would challenge everything he thought he knew about interspecies, empathy, and communication. When Dr. Wema finally reached the rocky clearing, what he witnessed defied every principle of animal behavior he had studied. Nyota, the gentle female gorilla he had observed for years, was standing directly in front of him, her dark eyes locked onto his with an intensity that was unmistakably communicative. She wasn't displaying typical gorilla warning behavior. Instead, she appeared to be actively seeking his attention. In a moment that would later be described as scientifically impossible, Nyota began a series of deliberate gestures. She pointed toward the rocky crevice with her massive hand, then looked back at Dr. Wema, her expression conveying desperate urgency. She repeated this sequence 3 times, each gesture more emphatic than the last, as if she was consciously trying to direct his attention to the crisis unfolding just meters away. The realization hit Dr. Wema like lightning. This magnificent creature was asking for his help. Moving carefully past the gorilla family, who watched his every movement with remarkable tolerance, Dr. Wema approached the rocky outcropping and immediately understood the severity of the situation. The trapped lion cub's breathing had become dangerously shallow, and the python's coils were tightening with methodical precision. His hands trembling with both scientific excitement and humanitarian urgency, Dr. Wema pulled out his emergency satellite radio and contacted the Bwindi Conservation Authority. "This is Dr. Wema, at grid reference 7 Alpha," he spoke rapidly into the device. "I need immediate backup with snake handling equipment and veterinary support. We have a lion cub trapped by a large python, and the situation is critical." The response was swift and professional. Within minutes, the steady thrum of a conservation helicopter could be heard approaching through the misty mountain air. The specialized rescue team, equipped with long-reach tools, tranquilizer equipment, and emergency medical supplies, was already airborne and heading toward his exact coordinates. As the aircraft grew closer, Nyota remained positioned near Dr. Wema, her intelligent eyes alternating between watching the rescue preparations and checking on the trapped cub's condition, as if she understood that help was finally arriving. I talked by. The rescue helicopter settled into a small clearing 50 meters away, its rotor wash sending leaves and debris swirling through the misty forest air. Sarah Mukamana, Bwindi's head wildlife veterinarian, emerged with her specialized equipment, moving with the confident precision of someone who had handled countless emergency rescues throughout her 20-year career. The gorilla family watched with remarkable calm as the rescue team approached, their usual territorial instincts seemingly suspended by the extraordinary circumstances. Nyota remained close to Dr. Wema, occasionally glancing between him and the trapped cub as if monitoring the rescue progress with genuine concern. Sarah assessed the situation quickly, her experienced eyes taking in the python's positioning and the cub's deteriorating condition. "We have maybe 10 minutes before respiratory failure," she announced grimly, unpacking her long-reach tranquilizer rifle. The specialized equipment was designed specifically for situations like this, allowing precise drug delivery without putting rescuers within striking distance of dangerous wildlife. The atmosphere became electric with tension as Sarah carefully loaded the tranquilizer dart calibrated specifically for a python of this size. One miscalculation could result in either ineffective sedation or dangerous overdose. Dr. Wema held his breath, his scientific mind cataloging every detail, while his heart pounded with emotional investment in the outcome. The python seemed to sense the approaching intervention, its coils tightening reflexively around the now barely conscious cub. Sarah steadied her aim, waiting for the perfect moment when the serpent's head was positioned for optimal dart placement without risk to the trapped lion. "Now," she whispered, squeezing the trigger with surgical precision. The dart struck the python's thick, muscular body with a soft thud. The serpent's initial reaction was explosive, its massive coils convulsed violently, causing the cub to emit one final, heart-wrenching cry. For 30 agonizing seconds, it appeared the intervention might have made things worse. Then, gradually, the ancient predator's grip began to loosen. Its movements became sluggish and uncoordinated as the powerful sedative spread through its system. The deadly coils slowly unwound, releasing their death grip on the tiny lion cub. As the python's massive body finally went completely limp, Sarah moved swiftly to extract the tiny lion cub from the rocky crevice. The little creature was barely breathing, its golden fur matted with stress and exhaustion, but its small heart was still beating. Working with practiced efficiency, she administered emergency oxygen and checked for internal injuries while the sedated python lay motionless nearby. The most extraordinary moment came when Nyota approached the rescue scene. With remarkable gentleness for such a powerful creature, she extended one massive finger toward the unconscious cub, barely touching its tiny paw in what could only be described as a gesture of comfort. Dr. Rima watched in amazement as this unprecedented display of interspecies empathy unfolded before his eyes. Within hours, the lion cub was stabilized at the Bwindi veterinary facility. The python, once fully recovered from sedation, was relocated to a remote section of the forest where it could continue its ecological role without threatening vulnerable young animals. Both creatures would survive to see another day, thanks to an intervention that challenged every assumption about the boundaries between species. But the real miracle wasn't the successful rescue. It was what Dr. Rwema had witnessed in Nyota's behavior. In the weeks that followed, his detailed field notes would spark international scientific debate about animal consciousness, empathy, and communication. Video footage of Nyota's deliberate gestures toward him became groundbreaking evidence of intentional cross-species communication. The incident fundamentally changed how researchers viewed gorilla intelligence and emotional complexity. Nyota had demonstrated not just empathy, but strategic thinking, recognizing that humans possessed capabilities she lacked and actively seeking their assistance to save another creature's life. Today, the rescued lion cub thrives in a protected sanctuary, while Nyota continues to amaze researchers with her remarkable behavioral intelligence. Their story serves as a powerful reminder that, in nature's deepest sanctuaries, compassion transcends all boundaries. And sometimes the most profound acts of heroism come from the most unexpected sources. In the misty mountains of Bwindi, where ancient forests hold secrets we're only beginning to understand, the impossible becomes possible when hearts reach across the vast divide between species. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.